Welcome to Freeport 19, Tycho Sierra, your home in the heart of the Orion Arm. We recognize that your journey across the stars is ultimately a personal one, and we pride ourselves in catering to the adventurer, wanderer, freelancer, or entrepreneur. Whatever title you choose, you can expect a bustling hub of opportunities here on Freeport 19, featuring extensive docking bays, secure storage, living accommodations, diverse dining, and recreational amenities. Medical services, a vibrant open-air marketplace, and comprehensive maintenance facilities help to make Tycho Sierra your ideal port of call here in the heart of the Sigma Draconis orbital districts. Rules and regulations. We want a positive experience for everyone. Role-playing is complex, with a lot of unique situations, but always keep the following rules, regulations, and guidelines in mind. Be excellent to each other. Before anything else, this needs to be a welcoming and fun environment. Your characters may disagree, argue, fight, and so forth, but there must be an underlying respect on all sides, with the understanding that this is simply a fun, casual game. Mind your own business. Do not try to shut down another character or faction's plans or ideas when those plans do not infringe on your character or faction and are still within the bounds of the server's roleplay rules. If you feel that another character or faction's actions do infringe on the roleplay's rules, please use mod mail to submit a ticket to the moderators. Quality over quantity. Proofread your post before pressing send or enter. If you make a typo or want to add more details, please edit your prior post, rather than spamming multiple posts. To do this, use the pencil memo reaction to your Tupper post. Tupperbot will then directly message you, allowing you to edit your post. Posts in roleplay chat should consist of complete sentences and paragraphs, not single words or sentence fragments. Take your time and elaborate. Players are restricted to one faction role, one active character, one inactive backup character, one crew quarters, and one business. Players may swap between active and inactive characters once per 7 days. Regardless if the swap is temporary or permanent, the 7-day cooldown will still apply. You may not roleplay in a manner dictating the actions of non-player characters such as employees, crewmates, henchmen, and so forth. Play your character and only your character. Clearly exit scenes. Exit scenes in character, not out of character. You may announce in the out-of-character channels when you are stepping away or need to take a break, but please keep any conversations in character channels entirely in character. Do not use Discord functions to reply to other characters. Keep all replies and responses to other characters in character, contextualizing your audience or conversation partner or partners through your words and descriptions, not through the Discord reply function. Wait your turn. Let people finish. Pass the mic. Give other players and characters sufficient time to respond, interact, and shine. Good roleplay is about collaboration and cooperation. If you are in a voice chat, do not interrupt in the middle of another person's statement. Allow them to finish what they are saying and then respond, so that the risk of misunderstanding or miscommunication is reduced. Do not power play. Do not auto. You may not dictate the actions of another player without their expressed, ongoing consent. Autoing is when a player performs an action that affects another player without giving other players a chance to respond, thereby, indirectly, controlling another person's character. If you are performing an action, other players must be able to react to it. No one is the best or the winner. You are not here to win. This is not an opportunity for you to put people down or make believe that your faction or character has more authority than others. This is an opportunity to play and have fun. If you are solely focused on competitively making your faction or character the best, you may be playing wrong. Mary Sue's or Gary Stu's need not apply. Roleplay as real people, not cartoons. Characters that are good at everything, without impactful flaws or weaknesses, are uninteresting and must be avoided. What happens in roleplay channels stays in roleplay channels. There is no talking about roleplay events, characters, or so forth outside of designated roleplay channels. This is extremely important for a setting like ours in the early days of being established, developed, and written. Not everyone in this Discord community will choose to participate in the roleplay, and we do not want them confused by fan lore. While there may be moments when something is said or done, either out of character or in character, that affects your emotional state or offends your character, it's important to recognize and respect the boundary between fictional play and reality. Inform administrators of group DMs. Group chats or group direct messages may be held only when the administrator, Raven, has been informed and has given permission for the chat. When contacting Raven, please state the participants, the purpose of the chat, whether it is interfaction or intrafaction. Please wait at least 24 hours for a response. If you do not receive a response within 24 hours, you may submit a ticket to ModMail. Do not follow up with reminders. Be deliberate and considerate when it comes to sensitive topics. Your character might be a citizen or representative of a brutal authoritarian regime. You might need to react to topics involving communism, imperialism, fascism, totalitarianism, capitalism, or other real-world ideologies. This is a core part of Dawn of Victory, but should always be handled with care and never be deliberately harmful, offensive, or targeted. Those who choose to roleplay as citizens of these regimes are welcome, but will be held to a higher standard of conduct with less leniency. This is not a place for real political debate about real issues. We are here to play as fictional characters in a fictional setting. Do not metagame. Do not incorporate out-of-character knowledge related to the role-playing experience while in character. Metagaming is when a player applies out-of-character knowledge to in-character actions. This includes, but is not limited to, the contents of other characters' factions, roles, or other information on their personnel submission. No weapons, no starships. Freeport 19 is not the Wild West, and only members of station security, meaning moderators and administrators, may bring weapons aboard the station. Unfortunately, it has been made clear that the allowance of lethal assets, weapons, firearms, explosives, and starships were not being utilized in this roleplay in a fashion adhering to the rules set at the outset of the roleplay. As such, player creativity in this regard will be curtailed. While there may be limited run official events in the future that temporarily loosen these restrictions in an intentional, mindful manner, these effects will be temporary. Faction leaders must be elected regularly. Elections for faction leaders must be held at least once every 2 weeks, at a minimum. The players in the channel must be aware that they can run, how they can run, and how they can vote. There may also be appointed a vice or deputy faction leader, and how that vice or deputy leader is chosen will be up to each faction to decide. Any elections for faction leader must last for at least 24 hours. Faction leaders get final say amongst their peers. Faction leaders are the first point of contact for a faction. They are the official representatives for their faction to other factions on the station, and will have final say on any action that their faction takes. Factional decision is factional involvement. Any official faction policy that a faction leader or elected official makes that will affect the other players of that faction must inform all of the players that will be affected by that decision. Inactivity should be rectified. If you are a faction leader and you know that you are going to be inactive for a period of time, you must either step down and hold an immediate election for someone to replace you, or designate someone to replace you in the interim during your period of inactivity. This is not canon. It needs to be perfectly crystal clear up front that whatever events might occur in these channels, they will not be made canon in the Dawn of Victory universe. Instead, with the universe still in its infancy, we want to see what kind of characters you come up with, the stories that you are interested in telling. From there, we can try to cater the development of this setting towards supporting the most creative and compelling narratives that emerge. What this means is that while your characters and events won't be mentioned directly in any official sources, we may use them as guides to help shape the sort of content that we release. Respect the lore. Dawn of Victory is an evolving universe, and much of the lore is very much still a work in progress. Even so, please respect what is available, published, and avoid contradicting established parts of the universe. Do not skirt the rules. Attempting to circumvent rules may result in immediate removal from roleplay. If you are in doubt, ask before acting. It is much, much better to wait for consent, permission, or clarity than it is to misstep. It is easier to ask forgiveness than permission does not apply here and will not serve you well. Stop when asked. Do not ignore the moderators. If a moderator tells you to stop doing something, immediately stop. If you want to explain what you are doing, or to petition, please do so respectfully. If, at the end of that conversation, you are still told to stop, that is it. No more discussion will be held on that subject. Lastly, have fun. Under penalty of torture. Roleplay is about creativity. And while these rules are just needed, they can at times, during very deep and important roleplay points, feel a bit constricting. With that being said, these rules are not an end-all be-all. It takes a lot of self-restraint to know when things mentioned above are appropriate or could be used in an effective manner. However, that's more suitable when in smaller groups of people, and not in a group as large-scale as this one. Because everyone is able to be made aware of everything and must be able to acknowledge what they are or are not okay with. If you were interested in doing something that either bends a rule stated or potentially breaks it, please make sure to do it appropriately and to ask for permission and insight from the moderators via ModMail. The purpose of this is for everyone to have fun, not a single person. If the roleplay ever affects you to the point that it is taking a toll on your mental health, your emotional well-being, please, sincerely, take a step back, clear your head, and don't take any rash actions you may later come to regret. Dawn of Victory submissions do's and don'ts. So, you want to make a submission in the directory for the Dawn of Victory roleplay. Well, here's the place to go to learn all the ins and outs of what's considered acceptable within that forum channel. If you don't know if a submission idea skirts the line, please ask instead of submitting it anyway. Remember, we have rules about skirting the rules knowingly. It's not fun for anyone involved to have a long back and forth with numerous resubmissions just to establish if something is or is not okay. Things may be added or removed as time goes on, or if we find a better way to explain things for our players, but for right now, this will be your guide for every submittable section. Of course, if you have any other further questions, please reach out by DMing ModMail on the Discord server. If the rules change and we amend previously accepted submissions, it only means that the roleplay server is continuing to evolve and grow. If something that was once okay no longer meets with our standards and expectations of the roleplay, our interest will always be in communicating what needs to be fixed and in implementing those changes. There are no hard feelings. Do not edit existing submissions. All edited submissions must be completely reposted. Editing submissions will result in those submissions being considered void and not approved. Please give at least 24 hours after posting a submission for moderators to respond. If a response takes longer than 24 hours, please only reach out once via ModMail. Any additional follow-ups will add an additional 24 hours of waiting before you receive a response. Please do not react to other users' submissions. The reactions in the submissions are purely for the purposes of moderators conveying whether a submission is approved or disapproved. Submissions should be well thought out, distinct, and significant enough to warrant noting. Good submissions are tools for improvisational play between players, not trophies or vanity pieces. Look, I messed up that word, but we're like 16 minutes in now. We can all just pretend that didn't happen, and then I just nailed this because this is like the 20th take, and I'm not doing the 21st. Ideally, submissions can serve to inspire and facilitate roleplay in a dynamic way, not purely in an aesthetic way. Personnel submissions, limited to one character and one inactive backup character. When you want to start participating in the roleplay, creating a person working on Freeport 19 is a great start. With the intention of your personnel, creating a character that follows the following tips for a roleplay experience will result in a better experience for you and for everyone else. More fleshed out characters make better roleplay opportunities. Filling out the basic template is a good start, but thinking about additional facts, beliefs, and relationships that your character has will immediately make the role-playing easier and feel more organic. Consider your character's motivations, their wants, and their needs. Due to the themes of Dawn of Victory, it's also recommended to at least briefly consider what your character's political outlooks are, beyond which faction they happen to belong to. Grounded characters allow for more relatable drama. While it may seem, at first in a superficial way, exciting to play an extravagant, over-the-top character, they quickly become exhausting. If your character is meant to serve as a vessel for an overarching theme for an arc, don't list out special quirks. Remember, people and characters change over time, and these characters are, hopefully, a commitment. As enticing as playing a United States secret agent on a mission to save the Orion Arm might initially sound, it can actually very quickly make roleplay feel dull or awkward when the rest of the people in the scene are a barista, a mechanic, and a chef. The same applies to high-ranking military personnel that would only rarely interact in public spaces, at least for job-related reasons. Consider the setting's vibe, and also the location of Freeport 19 when developing your character. Even if Dawn of Victory as a whole and Sigma Draconis are still under development, considering why your character ended up in the middle of the local cluster on a neutral port that makes them slot into the roleplay much, much more smoothly. Please also consider what a civilian station in the middle of civilization would tolerate on its grounds. This applies when considering your character's place in a setting where geopolitics and ideological conflict are at the forefront. Some brief extra tips. Do research on character quirks and traits that you want to portray, especially if they are quirks and traits that you do not share. Tropes and stereotypes are grounds for having a personnel submission rejected. For the setting, inspiration, see series like Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, or Babylon 5. Please, no heavy cybernetic or genetic modifications. We are not interested in, and it is not in keeping with the lore, to have a 7-foot, heavily cybernetically modified individual. Again, avoid tropes and stereotypes, especially potentially offensive ones. If you cannot roleplay a character, trait, personality type, or role thoughtfully or with nuance, play a different character. Don't make something you cannot portray properly. Mental illnesses, disabilities, and dispositions. If you're wanting to play these roles and they are qualities you do not share, you must do your due diligence and consult with materials authored by those communities. Quarter submissions are limited to 1 per character. The images in the linked and pinned file on the Discord were drafted by Ormer 1776. Business submissions, likewise limited to 1 player. These require approval before use in roleplay, as do quarters. Businesses should be tools for roleplay. Business submissions are, at their best, venues and opportunities for play between players. Good businesses exist within the context of their community. Successful and lasting businesses provide goods and services and do not exist purely for vibes. Businesses and other assets should help flesh out the world, provide roleplay potential and context for fellow players, and elevate the roleplay for others. Bad businesses exist only to give power to its creator and are not conducive to cooperative play. While it may seem fun or cool for your character to own a mega corporation, a security enterprise, or an arms manufacturer, the power imbalance created and reinforced by roles like these are antithetical to parallel and cooperative play. Businesses are not NPCs. Businesses should never be the mechanisms by which players play NPCs in addition to their player character or circumvent the play your character rule. If a business owner is not around in order to sell coffee, for example, they may not then roleplay as a barista NPC in their character's stead. It can be fairly assumed that baristas and other staff exist, and the business can operate without the owner player being present or playing out their employees. Please only play your own character. Businesses must abide by station rules. That means that there are no security companies, arm distributors, arm manufacturers, military contractors, spaceship manufacturers, or so forth on the station. Businesses and organizations related to these or similar themes would not be appropriate for a station like Freeport 19. While they certainly exist within the Orion Arm, Freeport 19 is not a war zone. Businesses must be distinct and purposeful. It can be helpful to look through previous submissions in order to make sure that you aren't making one that already exists. Look at the ideas needed, business lists for ideas and opportunities identified by the moderation team and by other roleplayers. If these resources are not inspiring enough, feel free to start productive conversations in the out-of-character discussion channel. No mega corporations. No mega corporations, meaning corporations that perform more than 2 distinct functions or operate an unchallenged monopoly over multiple industries. This includes attempting to make multiple businesses for 1 character, again, 1 per player limit. While these are interesting narrative elements when done intentionally, effectively executing on them requires authorial agency limited to administrators. Looking for group submissions, limited to 1, requires approval before use in roleplay. As this is the newest submission section, expect further guidance and guidelines to follow as a result of emergent play. Groups can exist distinctly from existing factions, as well as from organizations like businesses. Potentially, outstanding and active groups could become new factions in their own right. Although this may be extremely rare, it would also be extremely cool to have players create, lead, and organize factions distinct to Freeport 19 and distinct to this roleplay. As an example, players from the Comintern, Sphere, Orion Treaty Organization, and other factions may come together and agree that maybe they don't agree with existing policies, breaking off and creating something entirely new that follows their stated outlook and beliefs, values, and fundamentally sharing whatever divergent goal it is that the group is formed around. Groups, like businesses, exist to help enrich the roleplay and provide structure for collaborative creativity between players. Using a group, players can increasingly flesh out and develop businesses or other organizations in a way which shares authorial voice with other players and serves as a shared point of reference for play. Examples of groups may be club members, staff and employees, a crew together on leave, a band, a carnival troupe, a VIP's entourage, sports team, smuggler cohort, group of conspirators, news team, labor union, special interest group, specialized faction, local political parties, breakaway ideologies, and so forth. An ideal group should never be more than 6 players in number, initially. While exceptions may be made to active, outstanding groups, smaller groups are more cohesive and easier to manage, and allow all of the members of the group to contribute without needlessly drowning out the voices of the other group members. If there is sufficient interest in forming specific larger groups, and there exists a sufficient number of active players wishing to facilitate that group, exceptions will be made on a case-by-case basis. Please do not spam advertisements for group submissions in out-of-character discussion areas or repeatedly delete and resubmit them in the Looking for Group channel. Fill out the appropriate form, delete and resubmit for every role being filled. If nothing has changed in your submission, do not delete it just to push it down to the bottom of the list. It's bad etiquette, and if staff notice you doing it, you may be removed from accessing that forum. Thank you again for your attention with these rules and regulations. If you ever need to reference them in the future, you will find them pinned in the appropriate channels on the Discord. Till later, we'll see you in the stars.